Today on this edition of CCX News, we talk about something that's very important to our cities, but it's something you might not know much about.
It's a very complicated formula.
Very rarely would a resident ask about local government aid.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard thing to describe to people.
Today we are going to explore what's called local government aid, or LGA, why it could be important in the city where you live, and how it could be changing. Let's begin with what is local government aid. You might take a smooth drive on your neighborhood street for granted until pothole season hits.
Potholes can start out real small and in one night grow 5 times as big.
This spring's wacky weather meant crews in Brooklyn Center had to work early and late to fix the roads.
Our crews will be working overtime to patch the potholes and get them filled.
Those potholes are a literal reminder that it takes time and money to keep the roads drivable. In some cities, that money comes from the state in what's called local government aid.
LGA is a formula that was originally created back in the early 1970s, and it was at a time when property taxes were rising very, very quickly in Minnesota.
Gary Carlson from the League of Minnesota Cities knows a lot about local government aid, or LGA. He helps educate legislators on how it all works. Carlson says the state wants cities to provide basic services without overtaxing the residents.
Another part of the purpose of LGA is to say, we expect you to raise a certain amount of money locally, and we're going to help you if you don't have enough tax base to pay for police and fire and park and rec and your local roads.
But how does the state decide which cities get LGA and how much they receive? It's a complicated formula that involves how much a city needs to supply basic services, and then how much they have the capacity to raise. Let's think about it like this. All the state's money is here. The two biggest sources of money from the state come from you in the form of sales tax and income tax. Then every year, to determine if a city gets LGA and how much you get, the state looks at how many people live in your city and how old your houses are.
That statistical technique avoids having a city determine or influence the amount of money they receive, because you can't influence the age of your housing stock. You can't build more old housing, as it were, to basically get yourself more aid.
But there's something else that factors into those communities with the older homes that you might not have thought about.
Also, we found, interestingly, that older communities tend to have a lot of tax-exempt property. They have governmental property, they have school buildings, they have churches. Those types of facilities pay no taxes.
Let's take Osseo, for example.
We're only about a square mile, so I mean there's not a lot of properties to go around, period, and when you take away about 25% of them, it's a pretty big problem for us.
In Osseo, a quarter of all property is non-taxable, like churches, schools, and parks. The homes are older, and the population isn't very large. So local government aid accounts for about 24% of Osseo's budget.
That really pays for a lot of our city services, everything from police and fire, public works, some of the other events that we put on in the city, so it's very critical.
Osseo might be the smallest of our 9 cities, but it's not alone in receiving local government aid. In Robbinsdale, LGA accounts for 18% of the 2019 budget. In Crystal, it's 12%. In New Hope, it's 5%. It's 4 in Brooklyn Center and 2.6 in Brooklyn Park. Cities usually find out if they'll get LGA in the fall, right before planning next year's budget. But LGA is somewhat unpredictable. It's hard for cities to know exactly how much they will receive because LGA is often one of the first things that gets cut. So cities like Brooklyn Center have changed the way they rely on local government aid.
Not only does it change up and down, we don't even know if they can tell us they're going to give it to us. And they've proven that they don't always deliver.
Less than 10 years ago, the city of Brooklyn Center was hit hard when LGA had major cuts.
In Brooklyn Center, we actually reduced operations. We actually laid employees off because the city had become dependent upon receiving on an annual basis a substantial amount of aid from the state.
Since then, Brooklyn Center changed how they use LGA money as a way to keep operations flowing smoothly.
The city council made a conscious decision several years ago because it was unpredictable that we would take some of it and put it aside and save it for improvements, and we would only rely upon up to half of it for operations.
But could change be underway for LGA? Governor Tim Walz wants to boost LGA levels back to 2002 levels. It's something he's talked about right alongside issues like education. In the Senate,
It's not always possible to
cut another corner.
Senator Ann Rest's district covers 5 of our cities that receive LGA.
We have looked really closely at what is the best way to bring property tax relief to Minnesota taxpayers. And certainly one way is to have those taxes decreased from the start.
She says LGA keeps property taxes low, and she supports bringing the levels back up to what they were in 2002.
It's an equalizing policy, I believe, that all in all people think is basically fair.
Crystal, with its modest housing stock and limited commercial and industrial tax base, does receive LGA and is watching what is happening very closely.
It's not good news. Crystal, with 78 other cities, actually would see a slight decrease in local government aid.
City Manager Ann Norris says Crystal relies on LGA for basic services. Crystal is one of 79 cities that would see LGA actually go down under this new proposal.
Don't panic. We're going to figure out how to continue to provide the basic services no matter what. And I'm very hopeful that our local legislative delegation will be able to figure out a simple solution to this issue.
In short, LGA is complicated and unpredictable, but it's important for some cities to help defray the cost of basic services. As the session winds down, we'll be watching to see what happens. Reporting in Crystal, Shannon Slatton, CCX News.
The Hopkins and Armstrong baseball teams should be in the hunt for the Section 6 4A title this season. Both teams are off to strong starts, and they met up on Armstrong's home field this week. In the top of the first, Hopkins' Kyle Fiducia delivers the bloop single, and it scores Sam Sickink as the Royals get the scoring started. Then Miles Halligan drives a 2-out hit to score Will Stein for a 3-0 Royals lead. They're up 4-0 after a half inning. Hopkins starter Wyatt Nelson cruises through 3 innings, striking out 7. In the top of the 5th, Hopkins freshman Maddox Mikalakis drives a fly ball over the outfielder Joey Hurth, scores on the double. Next up is Parker Johnson, and he lifts a deep fly ball to left field. It goes off the fence. Mikalakis trots home on a double for Johnson. And then it's Nelson's turn as he rips a line drive into the left field corner, and this one will score Johnson. The Royals get 4 run-scoring doubles in a row, and they go on to win this one. Final score is Hopkins 8 and Armstrong 4. Co-op athletic teams between local high schools are becoming pretty common. 2 baseball teams in the area have become one this season. It's been a pretty seamless transition for the players and coaches in the newly paired West Lutheran Maranatha Christian Academy baseball team.
Well, I like it because we have the weapons from both teams joining together. We have a lot of depth this year, whereas last year we didn't have as much depth, whether it be pitching or hitting.
Besides the chance for more success right away, the development part is key for the future.
The co-op works great for us because now we have the opportunity to develop our players. So before it was everybody was on a varsity team and some of our bottom guys didn't get to see the field much. Now with bringing in another school, we're able to have a JV program so our young kids can really develop and see themselves as varsity players in the next few years. So
the team's home base is West Lutheran, and they're wearing the green and white of the Warriors. West Lutheran's Jeff Huth is the head coach, with former Maranatha head coach Aaron Hedrick as his assistant. Some rainouts have been less than enjoyable, but they make the most of it.
Yeah, we're always ready to play. Every time the game's canceled, it's like people are like, sending the crying emojis. We want to play. We want to win.
The Warriors enter Wednesday with a 4-3 record that includes a win over defending state champ Heritage Christian. It's a team that can hit.
We have a really good lineup. We have a lot of powerful hitters in our lineup, and we can put up a lot of runs. Our pitching is really good too. We've got some depth there that we didn't have last year.
More depth could mean competing for a section title for West Lutheran Maranatha. The Warriors grabbed the early lead in the Minnesota Christian Athletic Association by winning their first 5 games. Well, coming off a runner-up finish at state a year ago, the Benilde-St. Margaret's boys lacrosse team has started this season well. They're ranked 2nd in the state. The Red Knights are at home to face Blake this week. First quarter, Benilde's Matt Dowden fights off the defender and zips the shot in for a goal. Second quarter, Jack Van Overbeek to Jackson Lyshow, and he finishes for the Red Knights. Logan Gelling switches hands and rattles it into the top corner with the left-handed shot for a 6-1 Benilde lead. In the third quarter, Shea Kinney Leonhardt spins away from the defender and scores for BSM. The Red Knights go on to win 13-4 to improve their record to 4-0 on the season. We're closing in on the end of the season in one of the under-the-radar spring sports. The Synchro Gators synchronized swimming team representing Osseo, Maple Grove, and Park Center had its last routines meet of the regular season against Forest Lake. Section figures competition is Saturday, May 11th, with the section routines meet Saturday the 18th. The state meet is May 23rd and 24th. Wayzata and Hopkins from our area also have synchronized swimming teams.